The last time I flew across the country, the travel was good, my poker game was not. It was good to come home and regroup, but now it's time for revenge. I am the poker pilot, and I'm going back across America to pick up the pieces of my bankroll. First stop, Ohio. I'm in Columbus for a couple nights, so naturally I happen to find myself at Hollywood Casino. Gonna start this trip by dipping my toes in the 1-2 waters. Let's go. Alright, first featured hand of the new trip. It's Queen Jack of Diamonds from +1. I open it up to 15 and get 2 callers, middle position and the big blind. Monkey in the middle to a flop, which seems pretty okay for my holding. It's Queen Jack 5 with 2 clubs. Both of my opponents do a club check, big blind checks to me, and I bet $30. Since they both check their hands for clubs, it's less likely that either of them is holding a suited club hand, but there's still plenty to get value from. 1 pair hands, straight draws, stuff worse than what I've got. Middle position nearly calls but thinks better of it, then big blind says sure, $30 sounds fair. Now we go heads up, in position now, to a turn of the 4 of hearts. Essentially a blank card, shouldn't change anything. Gets checked to me again, and I'm not going to be slowing down. I bet $55 this time. Big blind calls again. River's the deuce of hearts. The backdoor flush draw comes in, but I'm not worried about that at all, especially when it gets checked to me again. I go with a size of 120, hoping to get calls from 1 pair holdings, but his hand flies across the felt at the same time as my chips. Still a good confidence boost to start the trip off. Lord knows I need it. Yes, getting dealt this hand is also a good confidence boost. What's funny is I had actually just sat back down from FaceTiming the fan back at home, so I posted blinds to get dealt back in. Good timing. $5 button straddle is on too. Gets to me, I bump it up to 20. Button decides not to defend. Come on. But thankfully the big blind does. We are heads up in position to 6 Queen Jack Rainbow. My opponent did that check in the dark thing, which, by the way, why do people do that? Do they think it looks intimidating or something? I bet another 20 and he calls. He checks dark yet again to a turn of the 8 of diamonds. Other than introducing a backdoor flush draw, probably doesn't change much if anything. I size up, betting $60 this time. He calls again. As the dealer peels off the river, he decides he wants to see the card first before acting, which is probably more of a recipe for success than acting with less information. It's the 3 of diamonds, by the way. He comes to the same conclusion as before and checks. If he's trapping me with a random flush or 2 pair holding, then whatever, he's just gonna get some more of my money. I bet $125 with plans to fold if he raises, but it doesn't come to that. He relinquishes his hand to the dealer and this pot comes my way. Moral of the story, post blinds to get dealt back in so that you can get dealt pocket aces. I guarantee you this will work approximately once every 221 times you do it over the long run. After some chipping up and chipping down, a poker session, I get dealt ace-queen from middle position. With the straddle on, I raise it up to 20, and next thing I know, we're going 4 ways to yet again an above-average flop of ace-deuce-queen rainbow. It gets checked to me, and I bet a smallish $30. Wouldn't mind getting multiple callers this time around since there's no flush draw on board, and I do indeed get 2 of my opponents to match my bet. On a turn of the Jack of Diamonds, I go into trap mode and check it. The 2 players I'm in this hand with have been pretty aggressive, so I don't think there's much chance of this checking through, and I'm right. My immediate left bet's $75. Last act calls that, and now I have to decide if it's time to raise or not. I elect not to, and only because there's not too much left to play for. One opponent has 175 and the other about 300. I should be able to get paid by at least one of them on a clean river. Raising now might just fold out their sticky 1 pair holdings. Let's see a river. It's the 7 of hearts. Safe enough, I will be betting. If one of these guys has king 10, they're just gonna get paid off. I pick a bet size of $200. This will put the guy with 175 left all in, and the other guy wouldn't have to decide to play for his whole stack if he just has something like a naked ace. The guy with 175 left decides, fair enough, and calls. Then, last act also calls. Makes me a little nervous, but at showdown, I can beat them both. Sweet. I drag this bad boy in, and this trip is off to a much smoother start. Hollywood Casino was a pretty decent experience. I did end up becoming upstuck, but those hands weren't too interesting, so these are what you get. I played for 4.5 hours, was in for $400, and out for $619. That's a $219 win, which sadly is the biggest win I've experienced in a poker session in about a month. Man, it's been rough, but this was much needed. Fast forward a couple nights and I'm still here. The other night on my way to Hollywood, my driver told me about this place. Good thing too, because it's not listed in Poker Atlas for some reason. Wouldn't have known it existed. I do have to wait a while for a seat, but when I sit down, I realize this game is not for the faint of heart. It's 1-2, but the auto $5 straddle is on, so it's really 1-2-5 and has been playing pretty closely to a 5-10 at times. I start out with $500, which hopefully will be enough. I'd buy bigger, but, well, I'm on a downswing right now. These next two hands are a demonstration of how good I run in dream situations. What's the dream right now? An opponent who plays basically the entire range chart and bluffs everyone at the table. I've watched him get caught with his hand in the cookie jar, no joke, probably 4 or 5 times already by the time I get dealt Jack 10 of clubs in the cutoff. I make it $20 to go, button calls, and so do the blinds, the true target player being one of those blinds. 4 ways to 9-5-4 with 2 clubs. I like it. The blinds check to me, I bet $40 to hopefully isolate the target player, and it works. Only he calls. Hitting a flush right now would be quite nice, but it doesn't happen. But it is a little something. The turn is the 10 of diamonds. My opponent checks, so it looks like he isn't going to be blasting away at this pot. I mean, that's okay. I have a value hand. Let's bet. I bet $90, and he calls. The river comes in offsuit 6. Brings in 7-8 and the skinny. By the way, I call 3-deuce the skinny. I have little kids and have enough dirty diapers in my life already. No need to bring them to the poker table. He checks, and I don't think I'm going to get any more value from worse at this point, so I just check it back. I should usually be good here, but I'm not. At showdown, it's my hand versus his 5-4 offsuit. Okay, whatever. I just happened to run into it. Good thing I didn't bet river, because he likely would have raised, and I might have been in a spot where I'd call, having seen him bluff so much already. Next hand. This is a pretty good starting hand I hear, and I'm on the button too. Let's get some money. The target player limps in, and it gets to me. Where's all the action, guys? Oh well, I bump it up to $20, and he calls. Heads up with this guy to Queen 8-7 with 2 hearts. Not my favorite flop holding aces, and it gets a little dicier when he just chooses to bet right into me. He bets $30, and I'm obviously not going anywhere. I call. Probably some merit to raising here, but he might just fold out his draws if I do that. The turn card is one of the worst cards in the deck, the 10 of hearts. Completes the obvious flush draw, completes straights like Jack 9 and 9-6, and makes more 2-pair combos that he could have possible. Additionally, I don't hold the ace of hearts, the key flush blocker. For these reasons, when he checks to me, I just check it back. The river comes a brick deuce and my opponent bets 125. He could just have a naked queen or even a 10, and since he's been caught bluffing like 87 times already, I just make the quick call. I get shown the bad news in the form of 8-3 of hearts. So I see how it is. The guy's a candy shot for the rest of the table, but against me, he's just gonna have it. Poker gods, you guys truly do have a cruel sense of humor, don't you? Let's go up against a different guy for this hand. Some quick background on him. He's very aggressive. Don't expect much calling from him. He will raise you and keep the pressure on. I'm in the auto straddle with Jack 10 of diamonds, a hand which has historically resulted in some big pots for me, both good and bad. There are 3 limps to me, and I choose to raise my option up to 35. By the way, sorry about the camera angle. I'm realizing I didn't really get good footage of my own chips and betting. Seat 1 is tough to film from. Anyway, 2 of the limpers decide to call. The aggressive player is the one to my immediate left. 3 ways to 5-7-8 with 1 diamond. I like it. My hand isn't made yet, but there are so many cards in the deck that would improve it. I'm first to act and bet 35. The guy on my left, Mr. Aggressive, holds true to his image. He raises to $105. The third party folds, and it's back to me. Do I complete here without a made hand? The answer is yes. I've got 2 overs, a gut shot, and a backdoor flush draw. I'm not going to be pushed around this time. There are still 2 streets of poker left in this hand, and this pot could get large with me holding a potential monster. I hold strong and call the raise. The turn is everything I could have hoped for and more. The best card in the deck, the 9 of diamonds. I now have the absolute nuts with a flush redraw just in case he's also holding Jack 10, which is a very real possibility. I check it to him because I know he's going to put money in, and guys, not only does he put money in, he puts all of it in. He covers me, so it's for 243 effective. I basically beat him into the pot, the river comes clean, and I get the double up against his ace-8 of spades. Not today, sir. The poker pilot can't run like a joke all the time. So nice to catch the occasional punt. Okay, Shark Tank. What a cool place. I love rooms like this. Now, despite that last hand, I still struggled to get a good solid run of cards, and thanks to not being able to convert against the Maniac Bluffer, I still ended up posting a small loss of $73. Half of which, by the way, was basically the rake. By the way, if you plan to play long sessions, you cannot be the structure here. It's just a flat $30 daily seat rental. I will be back for sure. West Palm Beach is one of my most common destinations, and for some reason I didn't learn about the existence of Palm Beach Kennel Club until practically yesterday. I could have been playing here the whole time. I sit down at 2-5, $500 max. We start this session off with a simple hand where I open it up with pocket nines from middle position to $15. One person calls and we go heads up to a board which contains all undercards. My opponent takes the lead and bets $30. Of course, I'm not going anywhere. He's only got about $25 left, so it's just about guaranteed all going on the turn. Sure enough, turn is safe, she checks, I bet enough to cover her small amount of chips, and she calls with top pair on the board. But unfortunately for her, I have her outranked by 1, and we take in a little bit of profit here. Now let's get to a more interesting hand. Here I've got ace-jack of spades in the cutoff. It's a straddled pot, and several people come in for just the 10 bucks. Not gonna happen. I'm gonna be charging more to play poker and make it 60 to go. 2 players end up calling, so it's still 3 ways with 200 already in the pot. I'm also the middle player as the button called, which is just my favorite. No, it's not. Monkey in the middle is just awful, and I intend to get one or both of these players out of the pot first chance I get. Flop comes ace 10-10 with 2 clubs, which is pretty good I'd say. First player checks, I bet 70, and the button calls. The first player's out. Okay. 1 player out, but now I get to play the rest of the hand out of position. At least I have a made hand this time. Turn comes in 8. I bet 125 this time, hoping for value from a worse ace, but the possibility of him having trip 10s is also in my mind. He calls again, and we're off to a river which double pairs the board. Another 8. Gonna be honest, I really don't like it. He could have 10s in his range like 10-9 suited, which had me the whole way and are now a full house. The double pair, even if he had a worse ace, could dissuade him from putting more money into the middle. I just can't think of what worse hands would call, so I slow down and just check it over to him. I'm hoping he just checks it back and we go to showdown, cause facing a bet right now would put me in a tough spot. Thankfully, it doesn't come to that, and he checks back. I show the ace jack, and I'm good. I don't get to see what he has, but that river was just kinda tricky to navigate. And here I've got ace queen off on the button. The low jack raises to 20, which gets called by the cutoff. I elected just call, which of course looking back at this hand I realized a 3-bet was probably in order to try to get this hand heads up in position, but as played we are going 3 ways to a flop of jack 4-3 with 2 diamonds. The 2 others check to me, and I'm happy to see a free card with 2 overs and a backdoor diamond draw, so I check it back. The turn is a nice card, bringing an ace. The low jack then bets 25, which gets called by the cutoff. I will say, I did think of raising, but there are plenty of 2-pair combos now possible given the board. Ace jack, ace 4, ace 3. While I have removal to these holdings with an ace in my hand, I have to consider that I was not the pre-flop aggressor in this case. So for those reasons, I just make the $25 call with plans to evaluate the river. Well, the river is above average I'd say, peeling off a queen. It does bring in king 10, but if someone got to the river with that hand, they're just gonna get a good chunk of my money. Low jack checks, cutoff bets 25, which at this point in the hand is not enough. I raise it to $100. Low jack is out of there, and after a few seconds of thought, cutoff decides to call, and I'm good versus whatever he had, which he doesn't end up showing. Not too bad, although I could have changed a couple things about this hand to play it better. 3-bet at pre-flop, and my river raise could have been bigger. Plenty of worse aces or 2-pair combos could call a bet more like 175 or maybe even more. Overall, I liked this spot. It's near the hotel I stay at, and I like the vibe. Here I was in for $500 and out for $941 for a win of $441 over 3 hours of play. With this win, we are on the right track and off to the next spot. No poker down here, which means it's time for... If you're just tuning in, Hands from the Past is a segment where I give a hand history from my pre-YouTube days from my pokerless layovers. Alright, let's get to the featured hand. Hello from Costa Rica and another edition of Hands from the Past. This one took place at the Guitar in Fort Lauderdale. I'm at a 2-5 table in a straddled pot. Under the gun 1 limps in, under the gun plus 2 makes it 50. Gets to me on the button and I look down at ace 4 of spades. Do I do it? Yeah, you better believe I'm doing it. I 3-bet to 150. Here's where things get a little interesting though. All 3 of the players, the straddler, the limper, and the raiser, make the call. So we're going 4 ways in a 3-bet pot with $600 already in. So now we're off to the flop, which comes queen high with 2 spades. Man, if there was ever a time to hit the nuts, it's now. It checks to me, and I bet $240, which one player calls. Greetings from Charleston, South Carolina. The turn is the 8 of spades. The 1 time came in, and this barbecue is delicious. I eyeball his stack, and he's got about 600 and change remaining. Naturally, I want all of it. Hello from New York City. He checks, and it's time. I jam. He makes the quick call, asks how many times I want to run it, and I say rip it. The river runs out clean, and he shows a set of 3s, and we take down this big pot. At the time, the biggest one I'd ever played. Back in Florida, and after that hand from the past, let's do some hands from the present from that same casino. This was the first place I featured on my channel when I started it last December. Ah, good times. Starting a brand new poker vlog was intimidating, but now here I am getting close to my first 1,000 subscribers. Consider helping me reach that milestone, by the way, if you haven't clicked that button yet. Most of you watching aren't subbed, and it's free, so you know what to do. Anyway, to the action. Starting off the guitar session hands with King 7 of spades from the button. Folds all the way around to me, and I open it up to 15, which gets called by both of the blinds. 3 ways to ace king 5, all hearts. Well, that's an interesting flop. Both blinds check to me, and while I have a pair of kings, just look at that board. I'm not c-betting that. I check it back. Turn comes a 9, and this time the small blind elects to bet 25. Big blind folds, and I figured small blind could be semi-bluffing with the queen of hearts or something, so I choose to call. River comes another ace, and the small blind bets $50. The second ace on board makes it less likely he's holding one, and I've played with this guy before. He's a good player and capable of bluffing, so while I don't love it, I put the chips in while proclaiming that an ace is good. He doesn't have an ace. He instead has 6-4 of hearts for the flop flush. Yeah, that's gonna be good. Nice answer. Remember that hand from Ohio where I cut a punt? Keep that in mind while I present to you these pocket jacks from the hijack. The under the gun player opens the action to $20, and when it gets to me, I make the 3-bet to $60. The small blind cold calls this, and we all know how much I love playing against players who cold call my 3-bets, and this incentivizes under the gun to complete as well. 3 ways to what I'd say is a pretty good flop. Jack 9-4 with 2 clubs. Now for the really fun part of this hand. The small blind open jams his over $600 stack. In my head, I'm already doing backflips, but I can't react or snap call just yet because Under the Gun is still in and is now in the tank. He tanks and tanks as I light off fireworks in my brain, and I hope he calls too. But he does unfortunately choose to lay his hand down. Probably got out of there wisely with a hand like pocket queens or something. Anyway, the microsecond his cards are across the line, I make my snap call. I display my hand, and I'm not out of the woods yet, as the small blind shows Queen 10 of clubs. Oh man, he's very much live here. Keep it clean, dealer. The turn is the 9 of hearts, giving me top boat. But he still has 2 outs I need to fade, and if he hits either the King of clubs or 8 of clubs, that would just be disgusting. The river is a clean 10 of diamonds. Whew. Anyway, poker's a fun game when you flop the nuts and someone else just puts the money in for you. More of that, please. Alright, let's take things to this ace-king. The straddle is on and I'm in +1, which makes me first to act this time. I raised to 30, which gets called by my immediate left and the button. 3 ways to jack 5 deuce with 2 hearts. I start with a check, and the player to my left bets $45. The button calls that, and I look to peel here with 2 overs and holding the ace of hearts. The turn comes the King of spades, giving me top. Now, check or bet. With 2 others in the hand and them both showing interest, I think my hand could use both value and a bit of protection. I choose to name my own price for this street of poker and bet $160. Guy to my left folds, and the button also folds. You know what? Fine by me. Taking down pots like these really add up. Now we're talking. I played 3 hours here and I was in for $800, out for $1,457, posting a win of $657. So far so good. Still more poker to be played on this trip though, and that'll be on the next video. If you missed the first couple of episodes of Poker Across America, or you just want to give them a rewatch, you can click here or here. See you there.